Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thought Leadership session on the Voice of Healthcare platform. I'm Dr. Sarika Gupta, your host for the day, and I am honored to have with me today Professor Dr. R. Kishore Kumar, who is the founder and chairman of the Cloud9 Group of Hospitals. We are honored to have you on board, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Dr. Kishore Kumar has so many accomplishments to his credit that I think it would take me a long time to count all of them. So I'm just going to speak about a few of them. He's a neonatologist, but he's won numerous awards as India's most admired neonatologist way back in 2016 to the Forbes India Entrepreneur to Watch Award in 2011, which basically means he's donning two hats together, which is the neonatology as well as an entrepreneur, and therefore has rightfully won the award for Pride of Karnataka Award in 2016 and the Australian Service Excellence Award in 2014. It's a wonderful list of things to talk about, sir. But anyways, we are so happy that you are there with us, and we look forward to learning from you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
I
sir.
first wanted to ask you, where did it start? I mean, why healthcare? And once you became a pediatrician and a neonatologist, why entrepreneurship?
That's a very good question, Dr. Sarika. First of all, thank you for Voice of Healthcare for inviting me to this platform, and also Dr. Sarika for hosting me and for the kind introduction. My dream of becoming a doctor probably started when I was a little kid because I was very positively influenced by my family doctor, who was kind, and the respect he derived from everybody in the family was so high. And we were four brothers. Sorry, we are four brothers and one sister. My mom always wanted one of us to become a doctor, and I happened to be the youngest, and none of the
Okay.
elders became doctors.
Okay.
So they were
That's
probably
interesting.
more sensible people, so they didn't take that left
No, no,
me
I
to become
think
a doctor. So
okay.
it started off like that, and then I was always interested in becoming a doctor, but I probably picked up from my teachers when I was in the final year to become a
Mhm.
pediatrician.
Okay.
But once I became a pediatrician graduate, I realized that the sufferings and the deaths of children was too high. So I wanted to
Mhm.
see how the world is with the pediatrics rather than just in India. So that's where it led me to go abroad. And when
Mhm.
I went abroad, I landed up spending 17 years, though I wanted to spend 2, 3 years. What made me
Mhm.
realize is healthcare delivery is a complex subject,
Yes,
and
of course.
India is very, very, very far behind in healthcare delivery. We have
Yeah.
one of the best doctors in the world. If you look at the recent statistics, in fact, the Harvard Medical School did a survey which showed that patients who are treated by Indian doctors in the US live 5 years longer than uh, patients who are treated by non-Indian
True.
doctors,
True.
which suggests that Indian doctors are one of the best clinicians we can have anywhere in the world. But healthcare delivery is complex, and we seem to have one of the worst healthcare delivery systems in the world. And true to the testament is today's COVID healthcare. It's not that
Yes.
we are poor, it's not that can't afford. We just don't have good administrators and good planning to deliver the care which we want to deliver for our people. So that's the reason why I sort of became interested in administration and becoming entrepreneur. And becoming entrepreneur was a little difficult because I had a lot of thoughts in my mind how I want to
Mhm.
deliver mother and neonatal care. And everybody
Mhm.
said that these things are all work in the ideas and in the West, not in India. So when we started
Mhm.
online 15 years ago, it was a very nervous journey because we didn't know
Mhm.
this was going to succeed, but we
Yeah.
wanted to deliver quality care in India, and we succeeded in that. And now, 15 years down the line, we have 25 branches all over India. So we did achieve what we wanted to achieve. So
That's wonderful.
that's the
Yeah.
brief
No.
what I can tell you.
Cloud9 hospitals, of course, aim at delivering international quality care in the Indian this thing, and especially in the maternal and child health care. And in fact, I used to always wonder when working in a hospital that this is the only part of a hospital where there is some joy and happiness. because people are coming in with anticipation and joy. Rest of the hospital usually has a more different environment because of the misery and the agony which is there. And I think it's very nice for the patients to have that kind of good experience. But at the same time, it's not just cosmetic; it's also excellence of care, which is actually the most important thing that we need to have today. And I also feel so glad to know that, despite spending so much time outside India and having that comfortable environment, working in that comfortable environment, you decided to venture back. I have a whole lot of friends who live in US, and they do tell us from there what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But it's so much easier saying it from here, there, and coming back and doing it here is a lot harder. So, I mean, I'm so
Yeah.
glad it's India's good luck that you came back and we have the Cloud9 chain. So that just brings me back to the pandemic. We've had a tough year, and we're still facing a very difficult time. But the Cloud9 group of hospitals has done some great work in the last year, and I wanted to know, how have things changed in practice in the working model in the last 1 year?
Well, that's a very good question, Dr. Sarika. I will have to tell you that pandemic has changed the way we look at things in three different ways. One
Okay.
is how we are treating our employees.
Hmm.
Pandemic gave a situation, everybody was panicking, everybody was nervous, and everybody didn't want to work and they wanted to go back, especially our nursing community. I'm sure anywhere in the
Hmm.
world, if you take nursing community, 90% of them come from Kerala in India for
Yes.
all the hospitals, and they all wanted to go back because they felt safe in Kerala rather than anywhere else. So we provided the home-like environment for them so that they can feel comfortable and stay. We actually made sure that we called all their parents and said that we will provide the insurance in case they get sick, and we will take care of them, and we promise them that we will do this. So internally,
That's really
we
nice.
took care of the people first to build the
Hmm.
morale. The second
Right.
thing is we wanted to look at our patients or the what we call clients. So we wanted to make sure how we can make sure our hospital is a safe place rather than getting infected. So we try
Hmm.
to make the hospital as safe as possible with all the SOPs to keep the parents and patients and customers very comfortable with all the safety measures. The
Hmm.
third thing we wanted to make sure is how we can deliver the services. That's where we
Right.
made use of the technology in a very, very big way. Number one, we started the home vaccination for all the mothers who are scared of coming out of the houses because primary vaccination, if you look at the WHO and UNICEF slogan, they say don't delay the primary vaccination because vaccine preventable diseases are lurking in India in a big way. Even if you look at
Yes.
the incidence of diphtheria, tetanus last year in India, in
Yes.
Bangalore, cities like Bangalore, there was a lot of children die of diphtheria. So we wanted to make
Hmm.
sure that nobody misses the vaccination. So we created home
That's amazing.
vaccination. We created a home vaccination and we served all our mothers at home vaccination. Then we created a nurse triage from home. Lot of nurses who could not work from the work wherever because of various reasons and the lockdowns. The experienced nurses were taught how to triage people. The number of
Okay.
calls we got, we directed through that nursing triage, and that gave parents and patients very, very confident. The third thing we did is we started teleconsultation for all the parents. And the good thing was Cloud9 being all over India, we had a lot of parents going from one place to another place to all corners of India, some even other parts of the world. They all felt connected and they felt they're talking to the same known doctor rather than some unknown doctor in a
Yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah.
So that gave them the confidence that my doctor knows my child better and treating. So all these things we did. So from the three aspects we used these things. Then we also felt
Hmm.
it was a good time because we wanted to do a lot of analytics to see how to improve our services. So we tied up
Hmm.
with an Israeli company to do artificial intelligence in maternal and neonatal care to
Wow.
identify the high risk patients purely on the background of the analytical care rather than human intervention so that we can target them and care them for better. So in that
Mm-hmm.
way, we continue to provide the quality care which we are synonymous with, and
Right.
definitely we have emerged more stronger, and we have emerged more like a family with all our employees trusting us than anything else, and we have kept the morale very very high. So in short,
Right.
that's all I can say. That's all those things we did.
Right. No, that's wonderful. So it's so good to know some novel ideas there for everybody to implement. And in fact, it's interesting how telemedicine and tele imaging has picked up so much in the last 1 year, which should have happened earlier also because it's something so beneficial, especially in a resource-scant country like India. But I think the pandemic has finally forced us to make that change and step forward and do that, and which has really been wonderful. So, in fact, the next question that I wanted to ask, which I think you partially answered, is that with this entire crisis sort of a facing environment that all healthcare workers normally live in, it's a high stress environment. How do you build a culture of empathy in your this thing, in terms of the kind of staff that we have or the kind of empathy that we expect from the healthcare providers towards the patients?
That's a very important question, and I have to say that the roots for this comes to me from my parents and my upbringing. I grew up, or I studied in Ramakrishna Mission, and in Ramakrishna
Okay,
Mission, they always treated everybody with respect, whether he's a sweeper, whether he's a engineer, or
that's
whether he's a
wonderful.
lawyer. So we treat everyone with respect and equality, whether it's a security or housekeeping or nurses or a biotechnology engineer or IT team or doctors. We did not differentiate anybody. When the pandemic hit, we provided PPE kits of good quality for all of them because we
Okay,
don't think that anybody working in the hospital system is superior or inferior. We provided N95 masks to everybody. So we did
okay,
not differentiate. And just simple things like providing N95 mask made some of the staff, especially housekeeping and the security, were in tears. They said, such an expensive mask you are giving us, and we don't come across infected patients. But we felt
hmm,
at the end of the day, you are exposed to all of them coming
yes,
into the hospital. So simple
yes,
measures like that, when we treated all of them equally, the
right.
teamwork became a simple issue. The teamwork, we always say, team stands for together, everyone achieves more. So that is what
Yes,
we call it as a
that's a
teamwork.
beautiful motto. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
So it's built over time, not just during the pandemic, but pandemic made them
Hmm.
realize that we do care for them. The second
Yeah,
thing what we did is we promised every employee, in the course of your employment, if you become sick with the COVID, we will take care of your expenses, irrespective of your salary. We will pay the hospital bills, and we tried
that's
to get an
amazing.
insurance, and insurance was very very expensive. So we felt it is
Yeah.
cheaper to pay the bills rather than paying insurance. So in fact,
Hmm.
fortunately or unfortunately, none of the employees in Cloud9 have lost their lives, but we had about 16 of us becoming employees becoming sick, and our bills
Hmm.
came to almost 22, 23 lakhs, and we bore all of that, and that
Hmm.
gave more confidence and the team mentality, and that actually showed the culture of the organization. And so the empathy comes from the top, not from the bottom, and
Yes, yes, I
definitely
totally agree with that.
we have shown that that can run in the corporate culture. So
Yeah.
it
Probably
is
that's the empathy that people are missing today coming from the administration,
correct.
especially in the current setting of the pandemic. And it's a hard thing to see how struggling people are struggling. And we are in the hub of it in India today. Um, so there's another question that I had in my mind, considering how much you've done and how much forward thinking you have. I was reading somewhere that our parents' generation, they did one job for their entire life. They just lived, did it, and they retired. Our generation, we take up one profession, but we keep changing. We become entrepreneurs, or we move from one place to another and sort of keep growing. And by the time our children, become professionals, they're probably going to be it's not going to be possible to have one job for more than 10 years because the change is happening so fast with technology. In fact, the pace of change has become so much faster. So
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to be in the next few years, but we've seen that 2 years now is how much changes in 2 years now is what used to change earlier in 20 years. So when you meet people across the board, the various leadership people in leadership positions, or whether people in other sectors who are doing great work, what does the future of work look like?
Well, that that's a very important question. I have to tell you one scenario. When we came back, we always wanted to come back because both my wife and myself, we are the youngest in our families. So we
Mm,
always said, we want to come back and make our parents happy and make a difference in the healthcare in India. So the motto
mhm.
was, that's why return. That's why when I left Australia, everybody thought I was mad because I had a beautiful house overlooking the beach. I had a convertible
I can
BMW,
imagine.
and I was a professor in the university, and I threw all that. And when I think back, did I do the right job? Retrospectively, it looks like a good decision, but
Mhm,
prospectively, now I think sometimes at the peak of my career, when I was 40, I threw all that, having achieved all that, and I came back. So when
mhm,
I built this empire, everybody said, "Oh, you built the empire. Now your son is studying medicine. He's done. He doesn't have to work hard." I don't
mhm,
agree with that, and we both, me and my wife, keep telling everybody that no, we didn't build the empire for my son. This is our
mhm,
vision, our future. His
mhm.
future is somewhere, and I don't want to curtail his future and his benefit for our wisdom or anything. Certainly, my son felt happy, and he said, "True, Papa, I'm not going to come to India, and I'm going to work somewhere else." And so we have better future. So, what the future holds is very difficult for anybody to decide. And as you rightly
Mm.
said, the current generation know what they want. Gone are the days
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
say, "This is the Lakshman Rekha I have drawn. You don't draw, go anywhere, and you grow under my banyan tree." It doesn't work. So the
yeah.
future of healthcare is going to change in a big way. Especially the pandemic has changed in a big way because the preventive and public health, which was almost taken for granted in India, is
Yes.
going to be looked at under microscope after this event. And I'm sure you heard
I
in
hope
the
it is
news
done.
yesterday. Sorry.
I hope it is done.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope
If
we
you,
actually introspect because it's really needed.
yeah. Now, if you look at the Brazil, for example,
Mm,
they have instituted a congressional investigative committee to see
mhm,
how Brazil has handled the preventive and public health during this pandemic, to see
mm.
whether things were done. So that's
Right.
probably an example for other countries to follow. We have to look at our own decisions, whether we have done the right thing, whether the decisions could have been done better. So there has to be
Mm,
analysis and post-mortem to see what could have been done better, what was done right way, and whether we can learn any lessons. And
yeah.
that is going to dictate how the future is going to be. In fact, this
True.
pandemic also made my daughter decide about her career, and she chose global health as an undergraduate. So things are going to change in a big way, and the future is very,
Mm,
very difficult to decide for anybody. Only thing
yeah.
is that what we can say is the future is not going to be the same as what we have now,
What
and
looks like now? Yes.
preventive and public health are going to be huge. Acute health
Yeah.
care becomes a smaller event rather than the major event in the life. That's all I can say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in fact, that's sort of brings me to another point. We've all of us in the field of healthcare sometimes when experience the wrath of patients, sometimes when we really, it's not our doing. We've had a recent incident in the Apollo Hospital in Delhi where the patient's attendants were so angry that they attacked the hospital staff because of whatever care was not being provided to their patient. And we've seen in the current situation that particularly the logistics of oxygen supply and everything is not really in the hands of the doctors or the even the hospital to a certain extent. So and but as a whole, the healthcare industry has not been very media savvy. We actually don't go out and speak as much for ourselves as we should. So How do you think that should change? What should we do to make sure that our voices are heard a little better?
Yeah. You are absolutely right. I mean, you hit the nail on the fin. I should say, we are not media savvy. Number one, and
Yeah,
but we should learn from the other countries. See, if you
yeah,
look at, for example, Australia, in the late 1990s, there were a lot of attacks on the doctors and the nurses in Australia when
okay,
healthcare was at its low level, but it was never as bad as in India. And
of
Australia
course.
immediately put up regulation and um, posters everywhere said, if you think you can attack a doctor or a nurse, please think again, because the poster said you will be put in jail behind bars for 12 years. So doctors and healthcare workers were considered equal to judicial system and defense and police personnel. So if you dare to attack a politician or a police officer in India,
Yeah,
you are not going to be let
yeah,
scot free. So why
yeah,
should
yeah,
a
totally.
doctor attack should be different from that? So I think the laws are there, but the implementation of the laws is not being implemented in a big way. I think we as medical professionals have to unite and make sure that implementation of the rule or the law of the land is implemented in a
Has to
big
be.
way, and that needs to be highlighted in the media. If you think you can attack a hospital and get away, think again. So if they put
Yeah.
behind bars, like whatever happened with the Jessica Lal, I'm sure you know, being in
Yes,
Delhi,
yes, yes, of
I
course,
think the
yes.
whole India needs to unite behind the doctors. The second thing is medical professionals have always been reactive. So we react to
Yes,
things what happens. So we have to
yeah,
learn to be proactive and see what we can
yes,
do better. Unless we start
yeah,
thinking proactively and say, look, this is what it is. In fact, I'm glad to say the Association of Hospitals in Karnataka have initiated a legal system
okay,
wherein they're asking the government to take responsibility for shortage of beds, shortage of oxygen, and shortage of medical drugs. Because if a person dies in the hospital, they cannot be suing the hospital when
yeah,
oxygen supply and the drug shortage is not in their hands. It's in the
exactly,
administrative
exactly.
law. So
Yes,
they have
true.
actually initiated legal action yesterday, as of yesterday. So
That's wonderful.
this is definitely a point in the right direction, but I'm sure all these things are going to be happening sooner or later. As I mentioned about Brazil, I think
Hmm.
people are going to change. The current generation are not going to lie down and say, oh, this is what happened in the past and I will continue to do that. So now,
Yeah.
because of the High Court injunction which has happened, and now the High Court has asked the Auditor General and Chief Minister of Karnataka in yesterday's injunction, why don't you answer these questions which has been raised by the Hospital Association? So they are in a
Mm-hmm.
spot. So
Hmm.
medical
Right.
legal responsibility will be lying on their head. And that's what we need to
Right.
do. We have to be reactive rather than proactive. And that's the only way we are going to bring a change in the system.
Yeah, I think we need to make our voices louder. There's
Absolutely.
absolutely no doubt about that. Fine. So that's another thing that I wanted to ask you that, since we've been talking about immunization, of course, vaccination has been the buzzword of the last few months, but I'm talking more from the kids' perspective. So this week has been observed as the World Immunization Week. And what do you see, how do you see our national healthcare system status on immunization and its efforts in spreading awareness about that?
I must say the current central government has done a phenomenal job with the immunization, because I think if you look at the last 5 or 6 years, rotavirus has been brought into universal immunization program, pneumococcal vaccine has been brought into immunization program,
Okay.
and pentavalent and hexavalent vaccines is available in the government sector. Injectable polio is made available in the government sector. So in that way, it has been a very, very pro-immunization government. And I must say, when the COVID vaccine became available, the way the vaccine was rolled out, first to the healthcare workers, then to the defense and police people, it is true to the principle of preventive and social medicine followed by the rule, word by word. Unfortunately, we were hit by the second wave little bit earlier than we could finish the vaccinations. Otherwise, we would have had a vaccination of the whole country in a very smooth and orderly way, which,
Yes.
see, people don't realize India has 139 crore people, and the
Yeah.
whole of the world, excluding China, the total population comes to 136 crores. That means we are actually in India managing the whole world as a single country, and we
Hmm.
can't manage a household of 10 people in a simple way. And we live in a gated community with 49 residences here, and we find
Hmm.
it so difficult to manage 49
I
houses.
agree with you.
And you can imagine a country of
How difficult
139
it is
crore
to run the
people being
country. Yeah,
managed.
yeah,
It's
totally.
impossible. And I think the current
Yeah,
government is trying to do the best they can. And
yeah.
the problem is, in fact, if I can put it in one word, I can at least tell you in Bangalore, lots of intensive care beds are being occupied by people who just taking oxygen and sitting in the bed. You don't need
Mm-hmm.
intensive care for oxygen. So
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
a
yeah.
disproportionate distribution of the beds, and there is no
Yes.
proper triage system where we can say, look, you don't need intensive care, you get out.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
single
yeah.
coordinated system should emerge. So that's why I said we need to look at the way we have handled this situation. There are some good things we have done. There are some things which we can learn. There are some
Yes.
things which are bad, which we are to throw out. And
Right. I know.
all those things, unless we do postmortem, we are not going to be a better country in the next few years.
Yeah, I think the healthcare introspection has to be, and I mean, even though the pandemic has been a very, very tough lesson and we are going through a very difficult time here right now, but I think at least finally it will make people realize and the value of a healthcare system. And, maybe that will become a point in the election agenda. That's
The
something that I hope
other
for.
thing I wanted to talk about, because you raised the immunization, I had been
Mhm.
telling my family that Covaxin, for example, is an Indian-made vaccine, and it
Mhm.
is actually, for all practical purposes, a old technology vaccine because they used
Yes, yes.
Virion,
Yeah,
and it's just the media made apprehensions and created confusion to a common man. Initially, everybody thought Covishield was better, then Covaxin was not better, then Covishield was better, then the clotting things. So the whole,
mm.
not just Indian media, the whole world media
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
mishandled the information of the vaccine. The
yeah.
message should have been loud and clear. The vaccine protects you from death and serious disease.
Exactly,
It does
exactly.
not protect you from infection. You will still be maybe able to get infection, but it will be mild and you may not need the hospitalization. Nobody dies after vaccination, but everybody gets infection one way or the other. But vaccine
True.
protects you from death and serious disease. That message should have been very clear. Had that been
Yes.
clear, the vaccine hesitancy would not have started anywhere in the world. And it's just that
Yeah.
vaccine, the way it was handled, I'm not talking about India, even in Europe, for example, AstraZeneca was
Yes.
ostracized. And a continent with such a learned countries, I was
Yeah.
ashamed to say that they handled the situation much worse than a developing country. I mean, they are looking like an idiot. So, but now they are
Mm-hmm.
taking legal action against AstraZeneca. And I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
shows the human nature, whether you're an European or a Caucasian or a American or
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah. Even in America, I
Indian.
think this has been a lot of news recently about how people are refusing to take the second dose of the Pfizer vaccine.
Yeah,
Which doesn't make any sense because once the wave hits you, then you realize the value of the vaccination because that's what we see that people are getting the virus, but they are not going to either get admitted or even land up in an ICU, which is
yeah.
what really happens with otherwise. So anyway, and I would just we're coming to the end of this conversation, and my uh, most important takeaway point. What would be your mantra for the change leaders of tomorrow? What do you want to say to the people who want to make a change?
Well, my mantra is work with passion, whatever it is, and never complain and don't have a thank God it's Friday attitude because it's not going to work. And whether it's Friday or a Saturday, when you have a brilliant thought, you pen it down and you stick to whatever you want to work, and you relax when you want to relax. And definitely you need to have family time, your own time to recharge your batteries. But whatever
Yeah,
you do,
yeah.
ultimately you need to do with the passion and from the heart. If you stick to the
Mm,
word, like I work only from Monday to Friday, then entrepreneurship and hard work is not for you.
not going to
Because the
work.
thoughts don't come only Monday to Friday, you will get on Saturday and
Yeah,
Sunday.
true. And you inspire so many people, I'm sure. What inspires you?
That's a very good question, but a difficult question. I'm a type A person and Aries, so I'm always inspired. Having said that,
Okay.
as I said, I have grown up in Ramakrishna Mission, so I'm inspired from Swami Vivekananda Ramakrishna Mission. But over the years, I've been reading so much about Ratan Tata being an industrialist as opposed to a businessman, Mukesh Ambani. And we have seen how
Yes,
Ratan Tata has handled whether it's a 2611 or whether any other things. I mean, there are lots of people who inspire you in life. You just need to open your eyes and see them.
true.
And it's not one single person. It's definitely, there are so many people who inspire you over the years. There are lots of
Yes,
brilliant people in India, and certainly Ratan Tata is a living legend for us. We are fortunate that we are sharing the same era as him, and nobody can be as philanthropic and as down to earth as him. And if anybody doesn't know, they should see the interview they conducted on CNN regarding how
okay.
he handled the 2611 post things, and you will have
Right.
tears in your eyes. And it shows
True.
you how to take care of your employees.
Okay. Wonderful. I will go and watch it today for sure.
Mm.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you. And it's been a great half an hour for me, so much learning. And I'm sure for the viewers who are watching us here, they must have really enjoyed the show. I hope so.
Thank you, Dr. Sarika.
Thank you, sir.
Really
Okay,
appreciate
sir.
it.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.